starting in a moment. There we go. So one quick announcement, we're talking about course registration, and obviously the question is, well, when do we start registration? So tentatively after our Easter break, which I know we're all looking forward to, the middle of next week, our families, so that's rising high schoolers, so current 8th through juniors, should be receiving an email and parents. And that would include information about course requests. For those of you who were with us, last year, the process is basically the same, where courses are going to be, the recommendations are going to be listed on the course request on my CCA, and then both parents and students have the ability to view, but only, this is important, only parents have the ability to submit the actual courses that you're requesting. So of course, that's just our means of, making sure that parents are aware and part of that process, and, validating those classes. Okay. And if we have questions about that, just, keep those on hold for just a moment. And let's see. Also, I'll just, share, for those who don't know, I work specifically with the 9th and 10th grade boys. And Mrs. Topish, which I'll ask to share here in just a moment, works with the 9th and 10th grade girls. And so, Mrs. Topish, if you'd like to share a little bit.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Natalie Talpish. I work with 9th and 10th grade girls. My daughters attend here. I have a 6th grader and a 3rd grader. And Mr. Danny Talpish is assistant middle school principal as well, so some of you might know him. I love serving this like population of girls. It's so fun to kind of get them started and get them ready as they think of college and transcripts and all those things. So I know we put that video out there and it has a lot of information, and we wanted to highlight a few things. So I wanted to talk about endorsements specifically. We have lots of different endorsements. Endorsements is, our word. It does not go on a transcript or anything like that as far as, this specialty. But it does show that students have taken classes or electives built around a specific interest. So for fine arts, we have dance, we have film, we have music, theater, and then visual art, which is more like the drawing, painting, ceramics. The fine arts like dance requires, and theater and music auditions. Those usually happen in May. And so you can always connect with me and I'll connect you with the overseer. That information is on my CCA resources tab as well. So you can always click resources. It says academic endorsements. It'll take you to who the overseer is for the program. I also got a lot of questions about our STEM program. So STEM can be a biomedical track, engineering, mathematics, or computer science. Those two have, 4 classes that we like to start in freshman year if the student is eligible. If they're not, it's okay. We can wait and start in 10th grade. But it's something we like to kind of look at now as you're thinking of specifically freshmen. You might want to get on that track if that's something that really interests your student. They're really strong in math and science and they're interested in that. And we can talk through that individually of what that looks like. There's a world language endorsement. Luke, I see your hand raised. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and one of the counselors, we can respond in the chat as well. And we'll get to the questions in a minute. But for world language, if you are new to CCA or if you're a Spanish speaker and you haven't started on that track, you'll also want to let us know, because we do have a speakers track specifically. And that sometimes kind of opens itself up for students that may want to do a world language endorsement, because they'll do 4 years in Spanish. We also have French, and that goes to 3 years as well. And the last thing I wanted to mention was we have a psychology endorsement as well, and ministry. Psychology endorsement is really fun because Dr. Mack, who's on here and introduce himself in a minute, and I run the Peer Active Listening Club. We love to teach students about just how to be active listeners. Someone might have to mute their line, but it's a really good way to kind of see their different interests and what they might like. And the last thing we wanted to mention was community service. Community service, we require 120 hours of community service over the 4 years for them to graduate. It's pretty much due by March of senior year, but we like students to get started and be working through that. So we kind of stay on average 30 hours a year, and just kind of getting in the field and getting out into the community of something they might be interested or might like, to give them some exposure. And we can, of course, always talk through specifics, but that's just kind of give you some ideas. We have those forms available too on the high school community page, and also our advisory page looks like a form to log their hours. So just a couple things there. And so I will introduce Mrs. Ramsey.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see so many people here tonight tuning in. I am the one of the 11th and 12th grade counselors for CCA. When we get to 11th and 12th grade, we split our alphabet. So I handle the second half of the alphabet, the last names L through Z. Dr. Mack, who you'll meet in a second, handles the A through K. So I wanted to just share a little bit about the things, the clubs and activities that we have going on at CCA in high school. So we have on the high school advisory page on the CCA, I think it's on just the high school community page, we have a tab all about the clubs that we offer at CCA. There are so many different things and they're always popping up new ones. I know that this year we have a ping pong club, but there's chess club, there's different Bible studies that are going on at lunch. There's all kinds of, if you have an interest or hobby, we've got it, robotics, HOSA, which is for our health, like healthcare organization, the FBLA, I think it's called Future Business Leaders of America. There's a great one. I'm thinking of the one that's related to Chick-fil-A, but I can't think of the Chick-fil-A Leadership Academy. I think that's a great club, along with the PALS that was mentioned before. So many things, and we encourage our students to get involved because as you'll find out as you go through high school, colleges want to see what did you do. I always say to my students, what did you do besides sit in a chair for 4 years in your classroom? Right? What did you do? Were you involved? Obviously, that includes things like sports and theater and dance as well, not just our clubs. We have lots of honor societies. I'm actually the chairperson for the National Honor Society. That's the largest honor society in the United States. It's recognized by every college across the country. At CCA, students are invited to join that, to apply for membership in their sophomore year. So they get in and then that year they're inducted in April and then they join us for their junior and senior year here at CCA. So that's something to look forward to. If your student meets the qualifications academically, they'll get an email from me with the directions on how to apply. But there's other honor societies. There's Dance Honor Society, there's English, there's math, there's science, there's I think the National Art Honor Society as well with Mr. Merrill. So tons of things that your students can get involved in. And we definitely encourage that and helps just to form community and friendships to help them stay well-rounded as they move through high school. So just check out the clubs tab. I think it's on the high school community page. You'll see that. So I'm going to let Dr. Mack take over. Keep going, Dr. Mack, with the next part.
Yes, how you doing, family? Again, my name is Cliff Mack, school counselor. I have the pleasure of serving the A through K of the alphabet, L through Z. And so Ms. Ramsey and I are wonderful co-hosts. So we split the alphabet. So we work with the juniors and maintain that relationship as they get into the senior year. And so much like everyone else, we all have other responsibilities at CCA. So I do have another co-host, Ms. Talpish, where we oversee the Pre-Active Listeners initiative under discipleship, as well as another component of that is the psychology endorsement, which that document it can be seen on my CCA as far as the specific requirements focusing on psychology. So we have wonderful endorsement programs, but some students may be more interested in the humanities. And so that psychology endorsement does allow students to be able to focus on psychology, developmental psychology, dual enrollment, which I'll talk about dual enrollment in another component, dual enrollment psychology, dual enrollment life, developmental psychology, and then some other electives, plus being a part of PAL. And so we can go into more details, but be free if that's of interest to you. Touch base with myself and Ms. Talpish. The other role that I have is the dual enrollment coordinator. And dual enrollment essentially is dealing with students who have an interest in taking high school level courses in college as well. So meaning that you're able to get college credit. And so currently we have a partnership with Southeastern University for this term, where we have students who are taking on-campus classes, DE psychology, as well as dual enrollment college algebra. But then we also do have a partnership with Broward College. And so that partnership allows each term, fall, winter, fall, spring, and summer, of students, allowing them to be able to take additional courses. So each term, I will post information on my CCA as far as those specific details, because there are deadlines that I have to adhere to as the coordinator and signing off on certain documentation, and then being able to get that to Broward College. So again, I'm your point of contact for dual enrollment, as well as another responsibility I have is that I'm also the girls varsity basketball coach. So if we have any girls that are interested in playing basketball, I'm your guy to talk to. So with that being said, I believe I will hand it back to our wonderful leader, Mr. Ortiz.
Alrighty, thank you, team. And I see some good questions already in the chat, and we can continue to, add questions in the chat, or we can take moments to you can unmute yourselves and ask your questions. But I'll just reiterate a couple of these, just because the community service obviously is related to all high school students. So, and I wish I could take a quick survey, but I'm not sure how I can do that here in Google Meet. But so for our current 8th graders, as soon as your 8th grade year is complete, so beginning that summer, between 8th and 9th grade, any community service completed then will count towards your high school requirement of 120 hours. We encourage students to double those for 240 to earn our community service recognition. So there was a question about when hours are turned in. We get this question a lot from students. The general answer is, hey, turn them in as soon as they're done. That way, the information is accurate. I think Dr. Mack made a good point. Make sure you make of your forms. The forms are available on my CCA. The forms, there's physical forms printed in the reception office. Our wonderful administrative assistant, Mrs. Gregory, receives those forms. Completing the hours as soon or as close as possible. When the hours are completed, again, they make sure the information is accurate. You get the confirmation. You do need a signature from a supervisor. And if there's any question, typically it's easier, if it's done within that short period of time, to go back to that supervisor to make any clarification. However, we don't have a requirement. You're not going to somehow be penalized for not submitting the hours right away. Right now, we're actually meeting the deadline for our seniors, end of March, to submit the hours. So that's when it's like it's crunch time, and now you've possibly not met a graduation requirement. So depending what grade level you're at, that could be very far away. So the answer is turn them in as soon as you can. However, you're not going to be penalized if you turn them in your senior year. I know there was an earlier question too on Spanish Honor Society. Mr. Ramsey did, answer that. We did have the society before. So all the honor societies and clubs, you may know this already. We have a staff advisor, and so with the honor societies specifically, it's actually quite structured in that there are member fees, because it's a nationally recognized membership, and so we need to be recognized as a charter. So all that to say that if you're interested in the Spanish Honor Society, is the best to speak to, I believe, our department head for Spanish, Mrs. Suma Riva, could assist you with that, and see if we can build that honor society back. And that really goes for any honor society that you're interested in, or a club perhaps that you're will like to begin if you find an advisor. Let's see here. A question about weighted GPA, unweighted GPA. So let's see, who from my team can I hand that off to? Who would like to jump in there, talk about weighted and unweighted GPA? How about one of the junior senior? How about, let's see, Joan, would you like to speak into that? Oh, someone just.
Sorry.
I dropped something in the chat there, but it came out weird. I tried to copy from our GPA table from the high school course guide also, because that might be helpful to look at. I can share my screen as you talk about that.
Right. So the difference between weighted and unweighted. So every student is in their core classes. Some of the electives are honors as well. We have regular classes, honors classes, and then the AP or dual enrollment classes. At CCA, we add a 0.5 bump for an honors class and then a full point bump for a dual enrollment or AP. Every school is kind of differently. I know in Broward County, they're on like a 6.0 scale. We're on a 5.0 scale. So you think of it as, you know, a 4.4 would be an A in a regular class, a 4.5 for an honors, and a 5.0 for a AP or DE. So every student is evaluated with both GPAs on their transcript. They're going to have all their classes that they've taken with their grades, and we're going to present the weighted GPA and the unweighted GPA. And depending on, you know, there's different reasons for different GPAs. As far as colleges do look at the rigor of the courses that you're taking, and they will look to see that bumped up GPA. And so you would get a higher GPA when you take honors and the AP and dual enrollment courses. Something like that National Honor Society, where we have a 3.75 weighted GPA to get in, right? To be invited to apply to the Honor Society. As far as unweighted, it's just something to know on the 4.0 scale. As far as for colleges, I don't think most colleges use the weighted, not the unweighted. Unless there's anything else you want to add to that, Dr. Mack.
Okay, anything to add there? Okay, thank you. There's another question again going back. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey, and thank you, Mrs. Talpesh, for adding that information. That's from, she may have mentioned it, but just in case, that's in the course guide. So you can always go back and refer to the course guide, obviously all the classes, but the GPA is broken down, the diploma types. Again, I'm thinking specifically of our rising freshmen, that this is maybe new information, unless you have an older sibling at CCA. We do have different diploma types, and you can see what the differences are. There was a question on community service hours. So I know we spoke about that a little bit. So the physical forms can be filled out and turned in physically to Mrs. Gregory in the reception office, or the digital forms, which we find on My CCA, they're completed. Or if you have a physical and you scan it properly, it can be sent to Mrs. Gregory. So maybe we'll put in, can someone type in Mrs. Gregory's email?
I can do that.
Chat. Okay, thank you. Okay.
There's a question about did you say weighted GPA is honors and AP, and colleges would not look at unweighted? I wouldn't say they don't look at it, but most colleges, to make everyone on the same playing field, so they're gonna, colleges look at what's called a core GPA, and they look at math, science, English, social studies, and foreign language, and then they'll give you the boost of honors and dual enrollment or AP. And that's how they make everyone kind of on the same playing field, a Broward County student versus a student in California versus a student at CCA. So that's, colleges definitely look at the weighted for a student. So I hope that made sense.
There's a question on the course selection. So again, we don't have like hard dates right now, but tentatively, I would say probably the middle of next week. So generally we give the students and parents about a week to 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half this year, just kind of depending. If the information get out, it's just like we're just all waiting for the courses to be available. So let's say it's the middle of next week, you'll get the email, and so parents can log into My CCA, students can log into My CCA. Go in the tab where it says course requests, and you see the classes listed. In the email, by the way, there's like very specific directions and a video, I believe, of like how to do that process, just in case there's questions about that. And of course, as school counselors, we're aware that you're going to have questions, and so we'll make ourselves available, email, phone call, whatever it may be, to answer your questions. So yes, those course requests will include the recommendations, which will include any honors or AP. If there's questions about those recommendations, the first step is for the student to go to the teacher of that particular subject area. And there is a process for that, depending where the student is and whatnot. So part of that process may be explained in the email communications that are going out, but definitely the step for the student to go to the teacher who's making the recommendation.
The question about, can eighth graders apply for endorsements? Yes, they can. If it's a fine arts, they'll need an audition with the fine art person. So we have on my CCA under resources, there's academic endorsement. There's a page for each one. It'll say who the contact person is. If it is like a STEM endorsement, they have to have certain prerequisites. So you would reach out to us just to see if your student qualifies for that. And if they're eligible, you'll be able to save that first level class as part of those electives.
I'm going to jump real quick to AP, and then I see a DE question. So we got Dr. Mack in the house here, our DE coordinator. So qualifications for any class, AP, honors, advanced classes. So course guide, and again, because it's unique, I can only give you a general question. So course guide, high school course guide, it's available on the resource page on my CCA. So that's where we go to as a reference. So there's no, secret formula there. We go to the course guide. That's our reference, which, by the way, is designed by our administrators and our department heads. And so obviously they're aware of the curriculum and what the, expectations of like, hey, how can we best set up each student to make sure they have a foundation to do well in that class. Okay. So let's see. I just see pre-law endorsement. So anything, again, would be law classes, endorsement, all in the course guide. Of course, if you read that, look at that, ask specific questions, you can come back to us. Dual enrollment, Dr. Mack, I think the question when they can begin.
You're muted, Dr. Mack.
It might be the headphones. I know sometimes.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Sorry about that. Students are able to start with our Broward College partnership in the 10th grade year, meaning we need to see a full year of 9th grade credits. And so 9th graders are able to, for those students who are in 9th grade, able to go through, would have had the process, the ability to go through the process for registering for the summer. So after the 10th grade year, courses that we offer on site, meaning psychology, developmental psychology, college algebra, statistics, that will be in the 11th grade year based upon the prerequisites to get into those courses. And those courses would have been satisfied 9th, 10th in preparation for 11th grade. Psychology endorsement. I do see a question about psychology endorsement. Any psychology endorsement, what grade can they apply for? Yes, those courses, it would be typically be more in the junior year. Reason why, as far as dual enrollment, as well as human experience. And also understanding this, and Mrs. Talpish can allude to this as the 9th and 10th grade counselor, that there's a significant amount of credits that you'll need to be taken care of in your 9th and 10th grade courses and 9th, 10th grade year, meaning that you're going to have a lot of room for electives. So 11th grade is when you're able to really open up more electives. So specifically for psychology endorsement, what we typically see is mostly 11th grade, as that's when the year. So 11th and 12th grade will be the year that you're taking care of those courses.
But if your child, and I'll pipe in, if your child's really interested in psychology, they can get right away involved in our Peer Active Listening Club.
Yes.
This is great skills that they'll learn. They'll make connections with like-minded students, and we'll be able to pair them with our middle school students that are interested in kind of like a big buddy system. We have a mentorship program where we also go into some of the middle schools, our local schools, public schools, and kind of work with those students. So there's an opportunity to get a taste for that prior to that 11th grade year. There is a question here that said, I'm sorry, Dr. Mack.
No, I was gonna say thank you for adding that, because there is the experiential part to that as well, in addition to the courses, if you're looking for the endorsement. And I guess I would like to say this as well, because myself, my colleagues, we've seen a number of students who have interest in the psychology endorsement. I would say, or not psychology endorsement specifically, but just endorsements specifically. Just encourage your child. What are they interested in? I think that's an honest conversation because we can look at the bells and whistles of recognition, but letting that be the driving force. So if your child is interested in any endorsement, have them reach out to the respective endorsement leader. And I would say specifically for psychology, yes, there is the experiential part, because we are about making disciples. And even as our school currently goes through a process of supporting a student who's facing a very severe matter, we're seeing the students really responding to one another. And I believe that's what we want to see. We want to see our community coming together. So that'll be my encouragement. I do see that there was another DE question. Did you want to say something, Ms. Talpish?
Yeah, before that one, Ms. Rice said, are students able to have 2 different endorsements? Typically, no. They usually have to choose one. It can be quite demanding as far as the coursework. And it takes 2 blocks of their schedule every year. So typically not. And they don't have to do an endorsement. Endorsement is strictly optional. I have a student who was telling me, I have so many interests. I like film, but I also like, the biomedical stuff. So she chose to take a film class, not the endorsement portion, and then take some of the biomedical classes. So she kind of got the best of both worlds, and she didn't lock herself into an endorsement. And what I like to remind students is, the colleges are looking at your transcript, which is those classes that you took. So they're not necessarily just looking at, oh, did they take, all these same classes in this one interest? That's really, if a student, that is really where their passion is. So it's kind of weighing those 2 things out. And then, yes, there was another question about dual enrollment, Dr. Ack.
I'm actually putting that in the chat. On site currently, and this can change. This will be in our course guide, and when courses are updated, we will make that clear. But currently, right now, on site 4 courses, I put those in the chat: psychology, developmental psychology, and statistics. Answering the question, no, we do not offer ACE. We only offer advanced placement and dual enrollment.
Is it too late to do dual enrollment for a rising freshman? It begins in 10th grade, so it'd be rising 10th grade. So you did miss the deadline. Didn't miss it. There is a list of courses of dual enrollment. If you go to Broward College, there's a list, and we can also email you that list. And it is offered off-site if it's that partnership with Broward College. We do have a few DE classes that we offer in 11th and 12th grade year, but not for 9th and 10th.
There's a question regarding in the summer. So yes and no. So basically, if we're talking in the summer, then we're talking like, high school credits earned not at CCA. And so typically for that student, that could be like Florida Virtual School. But what the opportunity there is to take classes, what we say for enrichment. So there's courses that we don't offer at CCA. We don't want students to miss that opportunity. So Florida Virtual could be an avenue that, the student, you could, speak to the school counselor. I just realized that, we can share some details, but most recently, Florida Virtual is charging students who receive any state scholarships. So just, be mindful of that. Where before, just some years ago, everything was free regarding Florida Virtual. So keep that in mind. And just a little bit of the philosophy there is, CCA courses, required graduation classes are, we want our students to be on campus. We want them to receive our curriculum from a biblical worldview. And obviously classes progress. And we can design the rigor of the class to make sure that students are progressing and prepared for the following school year. So the answer is yes, but for enrichment classes that we don't offer. I am the AP coordinator, so I saw a question on AP. I'll answer that, and then if my other teammates would like to add anything to anything else there. So AP classes are actually designed by the College Board, and we have, we've got most of them. So you can go to, you can Google College Board AP classes, and it'll give you a list, and you see that the majority of them we do actually offer.
I will say, Mr. Ortiz, AP engineering does not exist. There is no AP.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist. So, So, but you could see, a full listing of the AP classes that exist on the College Board site.
I do see a question about architecture. Yes, that would be part of engineering program. That is a civil and architecture class that we do offer. That's a junior level course, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Ortiz.
It is.
So there's a question about Bright Futures Scholarship. Somebody asked. I'm pretty sure I have it on the high school advisory pages. I'm not sure if it's on for rising freshmen. If it's there, there's a presentation all about the Bright Futures Scholarship and what the requirements are. Basically, Bright Futures is a state of Florida scholarship that is good at our state institutions like UCF, FSU, FAU. There's about 9 or 10 of them total. The scholarship is awarded to students who meet 3 qualifications: service hours, GPA, and SAT or ACT or CLT score. Those scores kind of change sometimes. What I tell you now might not be the same as when your child is a senior. We've seen them rise and fluctuate throughout the years. The application is filled out by our seniors. Dr. Mack and I work on that with them in their Bible or English class. We set up their application, and that's pretty much it as far as what the student has to do at that time. Then we actually put in all of their grades, and then the state of Florida is able to pull in their test scores, and then they notify the students what they're going to qualify for. There's 2 levels. There's 75% of your tuition for 4 years, or 100% of your tuition for 4 years based on your GPA, test scores, and service hours. All of our students with the 120 requirement, that meets the Bright Futures requirement because that's only 100. But then there's 2 levels. The ACT requirements would be a 25 or a 29 for the 2 levels of tuition, 75 and 100. And then currently this year, it's a 1210 or a 1340. So it's pretty much a line in the sand. It is the core GPA, like we talked about. They do only look at those 5 core subject areas when they're calculating a Bright Futures GPA. So something to keep in mind if that's something you're looking for. It's not just test scores. You have to have that strong core GPA to go along with it. So hopefully that makes sense.
For those who kind of join later, I just want to let you know that we are recording this session. So, maybe some information was discussed earlier. We're going to share the recording on my CCA. We'll have that available for you all. Okay. Looking through the chat again, feel free to add your questions to the chat. Looks like they've been addressed, but any questions? The National Scholarship, maybe someone wants to speak about just scholarships in general.
Yeah, I can address that one. National scholarships, one of the biggest ones that we are a part of is the National Scholarship Qualifying Test, which is attached to PSATs. That's one of the biggest ones, but we do on my CCA and getting more into your 11th and 12th grade year, there is a resource that we make available to families as far as non-institutional scholarships, where students are able to apply for. College Board has a significant amount of scholarships. And so we make a resource available of local as well as obviously state as far as Florida Bright Futures, but also national scholarships as well.
For Bright Futures, you automatically enroll the students, or the juniors for it would have to request your support. So Bright Futures, that application is done the senior year. It's usually around November. Dr. Mack and I will go into Bible or English classes. We will send an email to students and parents because we ask that they bring their social security number with them as part of the application. And we do the application with them in their class, and we make sure it's all submitted successfully. So we will do that for all of our seniors. So there's nothing that parents have to do with regards to the Bright Futures application part of it. Another question I just saw, do we offer AP Calculus A, B, and BC? Yes, we do.
We actually, speaking of AP classes and new courses, they introduced a new class, it's AP Pre-Calculus, and we started that this year. So again, we really have promoted the AP program. Sports requirements for graduation, or anyone want to speak?
Yeah, actually, I'll take two things. One, going back to an earlier question about public speaking. One class that I found beneficial, my daughter went through it last year. Well, actually, she graduated, but she partook in what's called the AP Capstone, which is the AP seminar and AP research. Two phenomenal classes that really teach skills. I highly would recommend, if your child is interested, and I'll emphasize it, if your child is interested and they meet their qualifications, I highly would recommend them to consider that course, because they do practice writing and presentation skills, which I can attest my daughter, who's in college now, are utilizing those skills. I will also say she may not necessarily get the college credit as AP. You can take the AP exam and hopefully get a qualifying test score. But I would say, as far as the skills that she learned, particularly in those two courses, has paid dividends in college. So I definitely would endorse that as a professional, but also as a parent as well. As far as a sports requirement, no, there is not a sports requirement as far as you need to participate in a sport. That's completely extracurricular, but there is a requirement for PE and health. That is a graduation requirement for students to take both those courses, ideally in their freshman year.
So I'll explain the National Honor Society just to make sure everybody knows. Sophomores and actually juniors who have not been in the NHS before are invited to apply in the spring of their sophomore year if they meet the GPA requirement of 3.75 weighted. When part of the application process requires an essay and 3 teacher recommendations and then administrative review for just behavior issues, making sure there's no red flags or anything. And they are invited to apply. Every year I invite more, and not everyone joins. It's something that we don't force you to be in. It's an invitation to apply. We want you to be in it because you want to be in it. So this year we're inducting, I'm at 92 new students on April 23rd. So it's the largest club in CCA, and we do a lot of community service in and outside of CCA. We support a lot of the activities that go on campus. And then we have some off-campus ministries that we do as well. And tutoring, we offer a math tutoring lab that's available to every high school student from Monday through Friday at lunch and after school even. I imagine that will continue on. It's been running for a couple years. One of our math teachers hosts that in his room. It's a great resource for families that might have students struggling in math. So hopefully that explains it well. So if they have a 4.0, I see this question. If a student has a 4.0 with no honors classes, they don't qualify. No, that's not true. My daughter did not really have any honors classes in her high school, maybe a few, but it's based on their 3.75 weighted. So that would be even if they had a 3.75 unweighted, because usually your weighted is higher than your weighted is higher than your unweighted. So not everyone is in honors and AP, but if the 3.75 they have, that's going to be enough to get them in. Hope that makes sense.
I'll take the next one. What advice would you give for students that are interested in Ivy League universities? I would think I'm not able to really. I think, and I would speak on behalf of my colleagues, that question deserves a lot more time to it, as far as their fit, who they are as a person, and also what course trajectory they're on. So I would dare say we can have a deeper conversation regarding that. We have had a few students are able to go to Ivy League schools. We even had a student this year actually really kind of push back on that. So I think that's a deeper conversation that we'd like to have with that respective parent and student about being able to get into Ivy League. It's not really an easy answer. At least that's my opinion, but I solicit my colleagues to agree or disagree.
I definitely agree with Dr. Mack. It's definitely something to consider and doing your research and understanding the difficulty of getting into Ivy Leagues. And we never discourage anyone from applying anywhere. And we know that ultimately they're seeking God's will for their lives. And if that's something where God is leading them, he'll open that door. But, we start talking about that in our junior meetings. We meet with every student in their junior year. Dr. Mack and I meet with them, with their families. They're required to attend. And we discuss a lot of the nuances. We have a college, in the fall, we have a college workshop that we present to all of our families, and then along with the Christian College Fair. But we go over a lot of those details about different types of schools and what it takes to get in, and coming up with that list of schools that we might apply to. So it's definitely something that needs further discussion, and really depends on the student, their gifts and talents, and where God is leading. And just it's hard to no blanket answer for that one, like Dr. Mack said.
Yeah, and the first, AP class that a student can take in 9th grade is AP Human Geography. So they do have to qualify to take that class. We look at reading scores above 80 percentile, and then, of course, high scores in English and in history. If you're a current CCA student, that recommendation we put for you. If you're a new family, that's something Mr. Ortiz and I would kind of look at the transcripts and your testing score and kind of see, and that would be that first AP level. So I would say we always kind of encourage students to be challenged in the classes, but we also want them to be balanced. So if you have, a few AP classes or honors classes, we also want to make sure we're balancing it with maybe something lighter so that they have room to do all the extracurricular activities and the service hours and all the things, so that they're well-rounded, because that is something that any college is looking for, that this is a student that is stretching themselves, but also balanced and able to be part of the community as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a quick word, and it's kind of been like alluded to, basically our philosophy of best fit. But the way that looks like in practice, at least part of it is, and I know we have, families representing all different grade levels here, but in the 9th and 10th grade, Mrs. Topish and I, again, I work with the boys, she works with the girls, we're going into classrooms and they're college planning meetings. So we're kind of giving them some big picture advice and, suggestions, academic, socially, obviously for our 9th graders just starting high school. So we're having that face-to-face time in those classrooms, and we're having, follow-ups if students are looking and parents are looking for follow-ups, one-on-one meetings. And then, as Mrs. Ramsey and Dr. Mack were sharing, in the junior year, they're having college planning meetings. Those meetings are pretty intense. So, kudos to, Dr. Mack and Mrs. Ramsey for that. But they're meeting with every single a junior, and as you know, we're growing, but a one-to-one meeting, and we're talking through, at this point, hey, college goals, good fit, setting up a plan for you so that summer, your rising senior summer, summer leading up to your senior year, you've got a game plan, what schools you feel like the Lord is leading you is a good fit. Of course, there's some reach and match schools, but just, an overview of how we help set up each individual student, try to meet them where they're at. All right. Any other questions? Looking through the chat. Looks like I got 6:46, so we still have some time. So a question about a specific field. So so kind of going back to what I mentioned. So we have the classroom meetings, in 9th and 10th grade. We use college and career assessment tools for students to help kind of discover some of their interests. Obviously, we're fielding a lot of questions from the students. And, we can talk through, there's a question there about extracurricular clubs. So clubs that are available, we remind students that clubs are kind of, created every year. So clubs are listed in the resource page. We're encouraging students to be involved in extracurriculars. So a lot of those components of those college planning are discussed in the 9th and 10th grade. And then again, we're available for follow-up. A lot of times questions and parents want to go a little deeper and more specific with some of those specific interests, whether it's the medical field or whatever it is. And we are absolutely available for that to meet with you and answer some of those questions. This meeting is being recorded. And what we do is we pass along to our communications team, and they'll share that and make sure it's available to everyone.
So that's a good question. How can we help them plan a successful high school, preparing them to college in their future? So we will discuss this too at the freshman fellowship when you come in. But one of the big things we encourage is this idea of emotional resiliency and grit. We want students to learn to advocate for themselves, talk to their teachers, come talk to me or Mr. Ortiz if they're struggling in class. And kind of be a little more proactive, maybe, be planning. I always tell students, I'm like, look on the weekend, on a Saturday or Sunday, look at your week ahead, take a planner or put it in your computer, on your calendar of all the things you need to do. So it's this kind of combination of planning, but also just kind of not rescuing them maybe at every time they get a little frustrated with a class. It's okay and normal for them to feel a little bit of it getting harder. That's kind of okay. And that's normal and natural. And so we kind of want to coach them like, hey, did you talk to your teacher? Did you email them? And the fact that we have these beautiful devices where we can reach out to our teacher at any time or to us is so great because they can be empowered to do that. And I think that's a really powerful step because if we kind of can master that freshman and sophomore year, by junior, senior year, they should really be kind of driving the bus, so to speak, and making sure they can advocate for themselves and make appointments with their teachers and their school counselor and all of that.
And actually, if I can add something to that, Mrs. Talpish, I agree 100% with what Ms. Talpish said. The only thing I would add, actually, in the recording, I'm not sure if everyone has reviewed the recording. Actually, I did share certain concepts, certain things that Mrs. Talpish actually alluded to, as far as even just good life skills, checking their email, being able to advocate for themselves, because that's going to be the transition, especially from 8th grade to 9th grade, for parents being able to say, hey, you know what? I see an issue on my CCA. Hey, son, daughter, go talk to the teacher. Let me know how that goes. Or, hey, email the teacher and CC me on it. And to Mrs. Talpish's point, the idea we do see some parents lovingly want to be there for their child, but also understanding what we have seen. I know Mrs. Ramsey has 3 kids that graduated college. Mr. Ortiz has a daughter's about to graduate college. I have a daughter it's in college now. And what we see is students being able to understand their own agency, understanding the gifts that God has given them. And guess what? As we as parents see, sometimes the best that has come out of us has been out of hurt or frustration in areas where, hey, you know what? I fell forward. I did not see success, but being able to say, all right, what do I need to do to get better? And so I would dare say those are the soft skills that students need to have when preparing to be successful in college. We want to have them have a great transcript and great test scores. All those are key, but also what we are seeing as far as true college success, meaning that they get into college and then can be successful and then graduate and find that successful job, is those skills of communication, collaboration. And I'll also say, because we're a CCA, we want to be in community as well. So how can we partner with you, as opposed to feeling like you're parenting, you're in this by yourself? You're not. You're in a part of a community that we're focusing on discipleship and seeing what Jesus is doing in their life. And so.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Mack. And like Dr. Mack said, he alluded to the high school orientation video that we shared, by the communications team earlier. So you can look back on your email. And if you haven't seen that video, it goes into a lot more detail. It's a great question. Thank you for asking that as far as preparation. So we've got Dr. Mack and his daughter sharing some great tips there. There was a question on SAT, ACT. The general response there, as far as prep, we always talk about Khan Academy. Khan Academy, partner with the College Board. So as far as preparing for what they're going to see on the PSAT or the SAT, and that can be done, anytime, even an 8th grader. So that's the great thing. You don't have to hesitate for that. We encourage them to continue their skill set even over the summer. There was a question about, I think, the SAT. We do have some SAT prep courses. We have an SAT prep class. That's a 1-semester class. But we also have a third party that comes in and offers workshops, educational the Sensa Educational, and they also come in a couple times every semester to offer some prep. There's a question, and when we begin that? Well, let me give you the general timeline. We typically say that an official SAT or ACT should be taken by the second semester of their junior year. So work backwards from there. A workshop maybe early in the junior year or in the sophomore year leading up to it. Tomorrow we do a lot of practice tests. Tomorrow we have a practice test for a 9th and 10th grader, for ACT. So in the fall of every year, we do the PSAT for 9th and 11th graders. And then in the spring, for 8th, 9th, and 10th, we do the pre-ACT.
Hey, Mr. Ortiz,
See if I can mute the.
Mr. Mike, your mic is live and we hear your background. Thank you. Appreciate it. I will take questions regarding the career assessment. In SCORE, you'll get more information about that. In SCORE, there are assessments there that students can take. I also offer another career assessment there is a fee for that one, but we can have more conversation. So that's another thing that we as a school provide a couple of free resources for students to be able to take that. And Mr. Ortiz and Ms. Talpish can walk them through that. But as they get into their junior and senior year, we can have more conversation about that. But what I will also add to that is the experiences that students have in school, meaning clubs, activities, that really also will help students to be able to identify, a career path and personality as well. So I would just encourage us, trust the process. We've been working with students and we want to make sure that we're putting them in the right position available. So Ms. Altman, hopefully that answers your question on that one. Again, free resources that we offer, but we also can have more conversation down the road as far as more weightier assessments if possible.
We've got about 4 minutes remaining. So any final questions? Let's go ahead and add those to the chat. And again, if for some reason, you've got follow-up questions, or maybe you weren't able to answer, share your questions or didn't get quite the answer you were looking for, obviously we're all available. We'll go ahead and type in our emails in the chat. And of course, we can follow up with anything that you may still have some questions about.
Dr. Mack, there's a question about the additional assessment you mentioned for a fee. Do I request this from you?
Yes, I put my email in the chat, so be free to email me and I can send you additional information.
The question of bright futures, really any one of us can ask, so it probably makes the most sense to speak to your counselor. So if you're, a rising freshman girl, Mrs. Talpesh, myself for the boys, 9th and 10th, and then if you're a rising junior or senior, of course, Dr. Mack, Mrs. Ramsey. Dr. Mack takes the first half of the alphabet, Mrs. Ramsey second. So that'll probably be the, make the most sense to share. And we can review where your student is at that point.
I also put a website that links to the actual Bright Futures Handbook if you have questions and want specifics. It's very specific. So.
Well, we also really appreciate your time for everyone. Any final questions? We're at the 2-minute warning. That's true. We don't go anywhere. So, if you got questions, during the second semester, even during the summer, even though we do take vacations, our team does need to rest, but we have an amazing team. I really do feel blessed, and we really do make that a priority to get back to, all of our questions, emails, phone calls. And I really appreciate our team for doing that. So again, if we just answered your question in general, we can definitely get into more specifics one-on-one.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night, and thank you again for your time. Have a great evening. Good night.
God bless.